Chapter 9. Transmission of polling station results, transportation of electoral material, and handover to the Constituency Elections Officer.
Chapter 9.1. Transmission of results and transportation of electoral material to the Constituency Elections Office. Can you explain to us what happens after the ward elections officer has finished collating all the results of all the polling stations in his or her ward on the form V23A?
Certainly. Similarly to what took place before, the ward elections officer must personally ensure the secure transportation of all electoral material and equipment, both used and unused, to his or her constituency command center. During transportation of the goods from the ward collation center, the ward elections officer must be accompanied all the way to the constituency command center by his or her deputy and at least 2 police officers. In the case where the quantity of goods to be securely transported is just too large, additional security should be considered as required. Election agents are permitted to accompany them if space permits, but each one must have completed the indemnity form PE 2005/2. Alternatively, they may follow by arranging their own transportation. These election agents must keep their election agent badges so that they may be permitted to enter the constituency command center. The sealed ballot boxes and the sealed envelopes with the V11 forms and other material must not be opened along the way. Under ordinary circumstances, the ballot boxes may only be opened if a recount is ordered by either the Electoral Court or the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission Chief Elections Officer. In such an event, only the specific ballot boxes specified in the order are to be opened under the terms specified in Section 67A of the Electoral Act.
9.2. Electoral staff at Constituency Command Center. Can you tell us which electoral staff are on duty at the Constituency Command Center and what are their roles?
Certainly. Typically, each constituency command center is serviced by 4 electoral staff, namely 1 constituency elections officer, the CON-EO, 1 deputy constituency elections officer, the D-CON-EO, 2 clerks. These are over and above other supporting staff such as police officers, ZESA, office orderlies, drivers, 2 logistic officers. Also, clerks. From every ward elections officer, the WEO, and his or her deputy, the DWEO, the clerks will complete the following activities. Receive and check that all the required original V23A forms have been duly completed and signed. The clerk must also verify that all writing on the forms is clearly legible and that all calculations have been correctly completed. Receiving and signing off for the return of electoral material and equipment. In a few cases, some material such as tents may have been left behind at the polling station. This should be noted and arrangements should be made by the presiding officer together with the constituency elections officer for their return to the constituency command center or the provincial elections office as may be applicable. Constituency elections officer CON-EO. The constituency elections officer is overall in charge of ensuring the correct administration of all elections in his or her constituency. The CON-EO will make use of one of the original V23A forms for each ward to complete an entry on the V23B form. For each ward in their constituency, there must be one corresponding original V23A form with all its original V11 forms attached to the back of the V23B form. Under no circumstances is the CON-EO permitted to complete an entry for any ward on the V23B form without having on hand its original V23A form and all its original V11 forms. The Deputy Constituency Elections Officer D-CON-EO. The D-CON-EO will assist the CON-EO in completing his or her duties. In the unforeseen event where the CON-EO is taken ill, this must be immediately reported to the Chief Elections Officer. The Chief Elections Officer will note this down and authorize the D-CON-EO to serve in the role of CON-EO.
The D-CON-EO is responsible for filling in form PE 2005/32C, Gender Statistical Form, for the constituency based on the form PE 2005/32B, received from each ward.
In the event where the Con-EO and the Decon-EO have free time on their hands, then they may assist the clerks with completing their duties so as to ensure that all activities are completed as timelessly as possible. In the case of constituencies with a small number of wards, the above-mentioned member of electoral staff may be reduced. For example, the two clerks may not be required if the Con-EO and the Decon-EO are able to fulfill those functions on their own.
Chapter 9.3. Handover procedure from the ward elections officer to the constituency election officer. We're going to walk you through the handover procedure step by step at the Constituency Command Center. When receiving the goods, the clerk will only open the envelope with the original V23A forms, to which the original V11 forms have been attached. These original V23A forms will be required by the Constituency Elections Officer to complete Form V23B, also called the Constituency Collation Form.
Note that the clerk must also ensure that the required number of original V23A forms have been handed over by the ward elections officer for each and every concurrent election. Photocopies, facsimiles, or anything other than the original V23A forms will not be accepted. Furthermore, the clerk must verify that each and every original V23A form has its required original V11 forms attached. If any such forms are missing or are deemed to be copies, then these must under no circumstances be accepted. The clerk will then verify that each original V23A form has been correctly filled in and all original forms show precisely the same information. All the information on every form is clearly legible. Check that all forms have been duly signed by the ward elections officer and all other relevant stakeholders. In addition to this, the sums on each V23A form must be recalculated in order to ensure that all additions have been accurately calculated. If any errors are detected by the clerk, the Con-EO or Decon-EO must be called over and any errors must be addressed by the WEO and his or her DWEO.
Before any corrections are made on the V23A form, the error and the required correction must be explained to any election agent present. After the corrected V23A form has been completed by the ward elections officer, the election agents present will be requested to sign the corrected document.
The verified original V23A forms with their original V11 forms attached on the back are then handed over to the WEO for his or her final inspection and verification. If all forms have been completed to the satisfaction of the constituency elections officer, only then may the ward elections officer be released so that he or she can be on his or her way back home. Before leaving, the ward elections officer and any election agents that accompanied him or her must hand over their badges to the constituency elections officer, who will then place these items in the appropriate envelope along with the other electoral material for that specific polling station or ward as appropriate. Nonetheless, please do note that in case of any unforeseen issues, the ward elections officer and the deputy ward elections officer must keep his or her mobile phone charged and switched on in case there is an urgent need to contact them.
Will all this electoral material be transported elsewhere?
In some cases, the electoral material will be sorted securely at an approved secure location at the constituency. In other cases, the material will be transported to the provincial elections offices for secure and safekeeping. The details of these arrangements are left up to the provincial elections officer, the PEO, and their constituency elections officers to agree on. It is extremely important to note that all the vital electoral material, including the sealed ballot boxes, the used and unused ballot papers, the voters' rolls, must be securely stored. Whoever is the senior elections officer that is in custody of these materials, usually the PEO or the constituency elections officer, bears full responsibility for the safekeeping of all these vital electoral materials. In all cases, the custodian of these goods must ensure that adequate security is provided for all these items. Before any of these items may be disposed of, an instruction to that effect must be received from ZEC Chief Elections Officer that the relevant items are no longer required and may be disposed of in the prescribed manner.
Let us go back for a moment. I assume that, as before, the constituency election officer may only complete the V23B form after receiving the original V23A forms along with all their relevant original V11 forms attached.
That is correct. Under absolutely no circumstances is the constituency elections officer allowed to complete an entry for a ward's collated return on the V23B constituency collation form if he or she does not have the original V23A form along with all the relevant original V11 forms in his or her possession. See, the key thing to note here is that original forms are required at every step in the process.
So when is the V23B form considered to be complete?
Using a reference to the original V23A form with its attached original V11 forms, the constituency elections officer will capture the results of every ward within his or her constituency. Each such original V23A form with its original V11 forms must now be attached to the rear of the V23B form. After all the results of every ward in their constituency have been captured, only then are the ward entries on the V23B form deemed to be complete. The totals must thereafter be summed up and double-checked. Once that is done, all that remains is for the constituency elections officer and the relevant stakeholders to sign the V23B form. The V23B form is now complete and has been duly signed. The form V23B is only complete when it contains all the collated results for all the wards in that constituency. The relevant stakeholders, that is, if they're present, must be requested to sign the completed V23B form. Remember that at the back of every V23B form, all the original V23A forms with each and every one of their original V11 forms must be attached. It is a serious violation of the prescribed results aggregation procedures if any original V23A or its V11 forms are found to be missing for any of the captured ward entries on the V23B form. This completed V23B form now contains the official results for that constituency. Based on this completed V23B form, the constituency elections officer will now announce the winner of the National Assembly election for that particular constituency. Thereafter, the ConEO will affix the V23B form at the entrance of the constituency command center. Please take note that the constituency elections officer will at this stage also have received all the electoral material and sealed the ballot boxes for each and every polling station in that constituency.
Under harmonized elections, there are 3 simultaneous elections: the presidential, the National Assembly, and the local councillor elections. However, the winner of the local councillor elections was already announced at the Ward Collation Centre by WEO. Does the constituency elections officer need to produce a V23B form for the local councillor elections?
Excellent observation, Tafadzo. V23B forms are only required for the presidential and the National Assembly elections.
That is now clear. Can you tell us what happens after the V23B form has been completed by the constituency elections officer?
The V23B forms for the presidential and National Assembly elections are completed and signed at the constituency command center. Now, just as before, there are slight differences. In the case of the V23B form for the National Assembly election, the constituency elections officer will announce the winner of that National Assembly election. By contrast, in the case of the presidential election, only the constituency's collated results will be announced by the ConEO. Please note that the winner of the presidential election is not announced at the constituency command center.
Instead, the winner of the presidential elections will only be announced later on at the ZEC head office by the chairperson of ZEC.
The constituency elections officer will display the signed and completed V23B forms outside the constituency command center. Afterwards, the V23B forms for the presidential and National Assembly, as well as all the remaining original V23A forms and original V11 forms for the local councillor elections, will be transported to the provincial elections office by the constituency elections officer. The constituency elections officer must personally ensure the secure transportation of all original forms to his or her provincial elections officer. During transportation of these original forms, the constituency elections officer must be accompanied all the way by his or her deputy and at least 2 police officers. Through the officers of the PEO, the relevant original forms will subsequently be transported to the ZEC head office in a similar manner.
This brings us to the end of this very important training session.
I hope that we are now all familiar with the election process and the jobs at hand.
So from me, Tafazwa,
And from me, Charlene,
it's goodbye from us.